So this is one of my old hoods. This is the harbor. So this is called Manus Harbor, and I'm gonna take you through like the projects area. Snap. So okay. So they made this street Tracy Brown Avenue. Tracy Brown is a young lady who's no longer with us, and she used to be a great author, amongst many things, great author, and close friend with my brother Jameson, biological brother. So this is 14 Roxbury right here, and we have police out here already. So yeah, try to put the camera up. So this right here is the old projects. That you got right here, 14 Roxbury, where I used to stay. Put the phone down a little bit. Just you keep it rolling, but I don't want them to think we filming them. I don't know what they doing over here.
Over time, the fees added up and most people couldn't catch up, therefore couldn't get behind the wheel.
So, moving back home, I did get a chance to see that there was some irresponsibility. Yes, there were the tickets and the having a car and the car insurance, but there were other things that I could see that was like, you could have spent some money on this instead of that.
A lot of it goes back to just learning responsibility quite early on handling bills, turning in homework assignments and things of that nature. So typically, if they don't grasp onto a lot of that, when I say they, I mean, young men in general, if they don't grasp onto that, if it's not taught early on, it generally just kind of snowballs and it doesn't stop until, you realize it.
Yeah, it easily turned into a snowball effect. There were times when I would get pulled over, they would run my plates, or they would see that my plates expired, and perhaps I had a warrant in another district because I couldn't pay the tickets in that particular district. They would arrest me and lock me up, and I would have to pay the bail to get out. So it turned into a vicious cycle. It easily turned into a snowball effect where it was just obviously it was just not affordable. We're talking about driver's responsibility fee, a suspended license, no proof of insurance, and expired plates. So, and for all of these charges, there are fees that are attached to all of these charges. And so every time they would pull me over, they would also write me another ticket or lock me up if I had a warrant for another district. vicious cycle. You know, I believe at the time I explored all the options. None of them were working for me. The first option was the courts. They would give the option of community service. The community service, basically, if you do the community service, it covers all the expenses and the fees, whatever you owed for that particular district. And it was, to me, I feel like it was very reasonable, and it was affordable for me to do instead of paying off these tickets. But at the same time, I couldn't afford to do that because I would have to take off from my paying full-time job that did not provide PTO. So I'm taking off a few days or possibly a week, not getting paid to do community service and not get paid. I know it was a good effort to help me get out of it, but it wasn't a feasible, it wasn't a logical option that I was satisfied with. I just could not do it. I needed every dime that I could get. Even though I wasn't making that much money, but I couldn't afford to take a week off from work to do community service. Second option was write the magistrate and explain to them, hey, you're not able to pay the ticket or the fees. You fell on some hard times. And basically, I would have been held at the mercy of the magistrate. Wrote the magistrate. They responded. They denied me. So that's not working. Okay, so that's two options that are not working. The final option that I thought was the best option was for me to get a part-time job. Now that was stupid, obviously, because you basically you're risking, getting pulled over again, because everywhere you drive, you're driving in fear, knowing that you can get pulled over again. So, but I said, you know what? Let me just do it, because if I get a part-time job, then I can knock off the layers of fees and tickets that I owed. Therefore, I can attack it layer by layer and get through it. So I applied for Taco Bell. It was a Taco Bell in Ypsilanti. I don't know if it's still there, but it was right near the area where I stayed. It wasn't walking distance, but it was driving distance. But at the same time, it would have probably only taken me probably 5 minutes to getting there, if I'm driving. I applied, they didn't hire me. And my guess is they didn't hire me because my license was suspended. Here in Michigan, you have to have a valid driver's license or a reliable means of transportation. And if your license is suspended and you don't have a reliable means of transportation, it's out of the question. They will not hire you. So all of my options exhausted. Nothing is working. So at this point, I find myself not really knowing what to do, and just at the edge of disaster. I know it's about to, this is what I'm feeling at the time. It's about to get worse. And I don't even know how I'm going to save myself out of it, because at this point, all options are exhausted. I remember there were times when I knew that I could have asked for help, but I didn't. And the reason why I didn't, because I did not want to impose. Every time I explained the situation, no matter how much people wanted to help me, when they heard the situation and the amount, they weren't about to bail me out. And I wasn't expecting for anybody. By all means, I was not expecting anybody to bail me out. I didn't even want pity. I just wanted help by any means, whatever you could do. But I stopped asking because I realized that my burden was this is what I felt at the time. My burden was such a huge mountain that other people that are going through things, it could be, I don't want to say intimidating, but it was imposing on them. They carried that home. They carried that weight with them that, this brother is going through a lot, and he's dealing with this mountain of, I think it was $4,000. It affected them, and I didn't want that to happen. I know that there were people that cared, but they just could not help me. And then there were occasions when I would reach out, but I would also, get the response that I knew, okay, you don't want to help me. I get it. I understand. I asked this one brother one time for $25. I don't know if it was because I needed, something to eat, or, something to last me for 2 days, or gas money. I forgot what it was, but I just needed $25. And when I asked him, first of all, he was very reluctant and very resistant. And I'm not about to make anybody help me that don't want to help me. It's one of the reasons why I don't like asking. You can call it pride, you can call it whatever. I'd rather struggle on my own and figure it out than to ask. But I remember his response was, "What make you think I got it?" And I was like, well, you look well-to-do. I mean, I'm sorry, if maybe I'm judging a book by its cover. Is that a good or bad thing in a situation? But you look like you have it. You look well-to-do. I don't know, man. I just took a stab at it. You could say no, and he was a little offended by it that I would ask him. And so at that point, I was like, man, I don't want to ask nobody else, because I know that I would help somebody. There are people that I gave money to that asked me for money, and they said they was going to give it back. Ain't never gave it back. Every time they see me, they forgot that they owe me. And they asked me multiple times and never paid me back for the first time. But when I give, I already know if you're struggling, then you ain't going to be able to pay it back. But everybody's not like that. So everybody don't have that mindset. And when I moved down here, I told my family, I said, listen, I know it's the will of God for me to be here, and that's just it. Well, if I would have called back home and asked them to help me, then they would have probably assumed that I don't know the will of God for my life because I'm going through, this mountain of a challenge. And then there were people here that I met that I didn't want to impose on them or even bring up what I was going through, because what was racing through my mind was that they probably feel like you don't hear from God if you're going through this challenge that you're dealing with.
The person may fear or struggle with requesting or asking for assistance because essentially it could just be fear of being vulnerable, fear of individuals judging them, or just the feelings of shame and the feelings of guilt, knowing that they got themselves in a situation that they don't know how to get out of. But in essence, what they are dealing with is pride.
is where a lot of the things that that I've been through as it relates to dealing with my mom's drug addiction and dealing with her selling drugs, a lot of the traumatizing things that I've gone through, not so much of as a child, but as a teenager and young adult, was here in 14 Roxbury, Manus Harbor. So I stayed here at 14 Roxbury, and I moved here. Me and my mom, we moved here in 1998. Now, before we moved here, we stayed in New Brighton. And my mom at that time, she was doing real good. She had a good job. Our apartment was real nice, spacious apartment. We stayed on a hill. We didn't have a house on a hill. Well, it was a house, but we was renting. So we was renting on a hill. But we moved here in 1998, and shortly after, that's when we began to experience a lot of challenges. Like I said, my mom, she was selling drugs. She was using drugs, but more so, she was what you would call a functional addict. And I tell my story and I talk about my mom not in the light of defaming or making her look bad, but more so to share her redemptive story, that though she went through all of that, she, God delivered her, and she was redeemed. But doesn't negate from the fact that we had many challenging times. And so it was here at this projects in Manus Harbor that I've experienced being arrested by the cops, the narcotic division. They would survey and watch the apartment. They would watch and keep tabs on the traffic that was going in and out of our apartment. It brought a lot of attention, and so therefore it led them to raiding the place quite a number of times, and I was guilty by association because I stay there. So I'm an extra body. And I remember the first time that they raided the place, I missed school. I was still in high school, and I was at home, and it was a loud knock on the door. And when I opened the door, it was guns in my face. They had the shield that they use. I mean, not the shield. I'm sorry. The instrument that they use to knock down the door. So, and they put me and my mom in cuffs, and they brought us in. But I'm sharing this because it's interesting that it wasn't just the childhood trauma, but it was also teenage, young adult trauma that was added to the childhood trauma. But thank God I was able to make the best of it with His strength, and thank God that He delivered my mother. But this is it right here, man. This is projects, and it's an interesting story. A lot of challenging stories, a lot of good and bad came out of this place. Yep. I think a lot of my bad choices and mistakes and failures, and especially during that time, the lack of responsibility, I think a lot of it stemmed from my childhood. And this is just talking with licensed professional mental health therapists, and just talking to others, and even in school, I learned this. My major was human service, everything that deals with the well-being of humanity, caseworker, social worker. But one of the courses that I took when I was in school is that we learned about environmental psychology. And there's a saying, and a lot of people don't agree with it, but you become a product of your environment. There is some truth to that. Whatever you lacked in the home growing up, or whatever you experienced in the home growing up, it's going to affect and almost, in a sense, shape your choices as an adult. And I think for me, having a rough childhood and experiencing the things that I experienced that were very traumatizing. I went through bad childhood abuse, and amongst other things. I think that it somehow shaped the choices that I made as an adult. Yeah.
Responsibility is the training that helps you respond to life's circumstances, such as adversity, how to deal with situations that you have to make peace. You have to know how to work with people, and being able to be left alone to take care of certain things in life. Responsibility is a trained attribute. You learn how to be responsible. Normally you learn it from home. However, we're dealing with a time where you really can't depend upon homes to teach responsibility. So then we have to look for mentors. We can have teachers as mentors. We can have Sunday school teachers. We can have pastors. We can have other influences. And one of the things that we're lacking in this day and age is male mentors. The old adage is, in order for you to be a man, you have to see a man. And the man that you see, quite naturally, you're going to start doing things like he does. Your father did things that his grandfather taught him or his father taught him. And so this information of how to deal with life, how to matriculate through life, is something that's handed down. How to respond to people you work for, employers, how to respond to the police, how to respond to people in authority. These are learned attributes. And one of the things that we have a lack of is people who teach responsibility. And I'm not saying you can only learn responsibility from men, but men receive from men quicker than they receive from women. And there's a certain confidence a young man gets when he's being trained and taught by a man. He's someone that's like him, someone that has the same emotions that he has, the person who's been through the stuff that he's been through. Those are the things that gives a young man confidence to listen and to follow what he's shown. Because children, but in particular young men, they learn how to model the message that's portrayed before them. So modeling the message, this is what young men need. And if they don't have models that they should have, they're going to model some behavior. And normally the behavior they model is what's going on in society. Who are the role models that the world is showing them? And if they don't get that together and have an alternative from what the world is doing, they usually end up in a place that God didn't want them to be in.
I didn't find out who my dad was until I was in my 20s. And my stepdad, who I thought was my dad, even while I was a child, maybe I was around 2 or 3, I'm not sure, but he got locked up. And for a long stretch, for many years, I was without a father figure. It was just me and my mother, and I saw the life that she lived, initially before she had me and my older brother, she was a Southern girl, born in Gunbury, North Carolina. And but at some point, she got exposed to the fast life. She started dating my stepdad, and she was selling drugs and just living a lifestyle of that fast lane, fast life. And but I remember being around her, and it was just me and her for a long time. And I think that by me not having a father figure, an accountable, integral man a responsible man that I could look up to, I think that was something that affected me as I got older.
I didn't have too much like the other kids on my block in the neighborhood. We was kind of poor. We didn't have too much. One neighbor helped another. And I felt ashamed sometimes. And not only that, my reading wasn't that well. And I stayed hungry all the time. It was like I was just standing just on that side. And everybody else was playing. All the rest of the kids was playing. I got bullied a lot. The kids picked on me. And I was just keeping to myself. I became more bold when I got married. And I loved my husband. And I would do anything for him. But my husband wanted to be out there in the street, and I didn't want him in the street. In order to have my husband home, I decided to do what he was doing out in the street. But I allowed him to come into my house to quit it, to stop. He was doing drugs, and I allowed for him to teach me how to do the drugs. And then things started getting out of hand that he was leaving me home and being out there. So then I got to the point that I was getting tired of it. My husband used to beat me, stomp me, neglect me with my son. And when I went to my sister's house and they talked to me, I said, I'm not going to do this no more. I'm not going through this no more. With no man. Ain't no man going to make me feel like I'm dirt and like I'm a mop. So I just started looking at the women's. And I said, if a woman ever approached me out of the way, I'm going to beat them just like I'm beating on my husband. And that was the only way that I can bring myself or build myself up to feel like I'm achieving something. And if a woman would say something to me that I didn't like, and I get in a fight, I would beat them like I was beating my husband, because my husband was too big for me to beat, and I had to use some woman as an example. There came a time when I took over my husband's business. He had started running out there so much and using up the supply, and then he had people chasing him. And he taught me how to use drugs, but I won't get nothing out of it. So I decided I'm going to sell the drugs. So I started selling the drugs, and I started making the money, and I started banking the money, and I started going to the supplier when I run out and let them supply me. And they liked it, the way I handle myself better than my husband. So when he get into a bind and owed everybody, the drug dealers, I had to pay his debt off. And I became loyal to the rock till I could get it on consignment. And I moved from there. And I worked from there. And it had gotten to a point I was doing so good that I was giving it away. I was looking out for the girls on the block that was standing there tricking. And I didn't like that, how the men was treating them and telling them to get your knees dirty if they wanted to get a hit and they wanted a fix or something. I didn't like it. So my thing was I would look out for the girls. And I had them come to the house. If they wanted to bring their friend, I got the supply. You ain't got to be out there on the block. Just come to me. And they did. You know, I felt like with my kids, the things that I didn't have, I was going to make sure that they had it. Education, I was going to make sure they had the education. As for their upcoming, I didn't want them to want for anything. But there came a time with me out there doing what I was doing that I neglected them. I didn't mean to do it, but I did. I started using the drugs. My mother had to send for them. I sent them down south, you know, to be with my mother so I can get my life together. I went back down there, tried to get my life together. My mother was in church. I used to go to church, but I still was doing what I was doing in New York, down in North Carolina. It was like I was trying to run away from it, and I ran into it. I remember that I was tired of being out there in the street. I started beginning to feel like I was losing myself. I could see I was doing the same thing that I took females from the street, trying to help them at my house, getting high. I could see I was becoming part of them. And that time I didn't have drugs. And there's time that I wanted to do what they was doing for the drugs. But I prayed and I wouldn't. I used to go to my brother's house, my brother-in-law, and I tell him, I need this, please. And he would rather give it to me than to see me out there in the street. And I love him for that. And I prayed to God. I said, Lord, please. I said, if you just take this and taste from me. And I said, sometimes I feel like, oh, Lord, I don't like to think on these terms.
That was so good. She has a wonderful conviction.
Tell me to wipe my face.
I love my mother, and I know that a lot of the choices and decisions that she made, though they were not good choices and decisions, but she was only doing what she knew to do at that time. And I thank God that he delivered her and set her free from drug addiction and alcoholism and all of those things, and from that lifestyle. And looking back retrospectively, I now know that it was nobody but the enemy. At the time, it was hard for me to see it. I mean, even growing up, you know, obviously I didn't know Jesus Christ all my life. When I was a kid, I didn't understand everything. I just knew that whenever I needed something, she was there. But as I got older and I became a born again believer, and yet she was still dealing with those demons and dealing with addiction and all of those things. It was a struggle. I had to walk in love. I had to forgive, and I had to be very patient. And but I thank God that I was patient, because I started to see the hand of God really, really work in her life. And I love the fact that she allowed God to do that for her. And I'm not saying that I never had a father. I just found out who my father was in my 20s. But me and my father have a great relationship. Just because someone did not have a father around does not necessarily mean that they struggle with daddy issues. they struggled with daddy issues, but there is a way that you could break the struggle. And I think that we need more men, and we need more fathers.
Then his car broke down and he had to spend money to get that fixed. And so then he wasn't able to pay his car note. And I remember him having to park a couple of complexes over to, basically he was running from the repo man.
And I'm throwing off the repo man because, and I would even see him, drive around in that area looking for my car. But he didn't know my car was it was either in this particular parking lot or it was in a parking lot further down. But I'm looking out the window and I'm like, oh God.
One day he called me because he got arrested. Because one thing about it is if you have those tickets and driver responsibility fee and you're not paying, there's a target on your back. And whenever you get pulled over, it's gonna turn into a warrant. And so he called me from jail. So I had to bail him out.
Man, it got bad. It got so bad that I was afraid to drive. Like, the fear got worse. I mean, every time I drove somewhere, and it could be important places, when a light flashed behind me, I didn't know if it was the police or I didn't know if it was someone flashing their high beams, but the intense fear, it just, man, it was insane. Mentally, I felt like I was just gonna break.
And it was this good idea in theory that some more revenue would be coming to the state for these fees, but I think what the state was finding was that a lot of people couldn't pay them or weren't paying them.
Right.
It was affecting people's ability to get to work, get jobs, and right now in today's economy, that's what we need to get to.
Because this fee was assessed not only 1 year, but then it was assessed the second year against the offender. And if they didn't pay the fee, then the fee just continued to be assessed every year, to the point where it wasn't uncommon to have people with $10,000 worth of fees.
And let's be honest, at that point, they're probably driving without insurance and maybe without a license because they can't pay all the fees.
That's exactly right. And so they couldn't drive. How could they get back to work to earn money to pay the fees? And how is it fair to continually punish someone in this sort of the serialized manner for an offense that we've already deemed illegal?
So let's get this straight. 2003, they created this monster called driver's responsibility fee. They created it in efforts to somehow increase the economy and to punish those who already had a harsh driving record. Here's the thing. You can't have both things in operation at the same time. Hundreds of thousands of drivers already couldn't afford to pay off their tickets. They couldn't afford to get their license unsuspended, and then you're going to add an additional fee that can range from hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars. And if they lived in one city and their job was located in another city, they may have to drive through a specific district. And so if they're driving through a district where they get pulled over by the state trooper and the state trooper discovers that their license is suspended, they issue the driver a ticket. The driver can't afford to pay that ticket because he couldn't afford to pay all the other tickets and he couldn't afford to get his license unsuspended. So now the courts for that particular district gets involved and they issue a warrant. And the next time this driver gets pulled over, They got that ticket that they couldn't afford to pay. They got this unsuspended license, and then they have this warrant. And guess what? When the trooper finds out that you have a warrant, it could be in another district or that district, they are going to lock you up. And when they lock you up, they're going to put a bail over you that you cannot afford to pay. It is a vicious cycle. It is like a snowball effect. And so, granted, people might say, oh, well, you know, you was irresponsible and you should have never got yourself into the mess. Well, here's the thing. That's very well true, but there should be a redemptive system to help people get out of this situation rather than kick them while they are low. And that's the bottom line.
Well, unfortunately, we have over 20 current suspensions.
It's the same for driving.
I know, but
it's no way possible I can get it up. I can't do anything, sir. Please.
He even called our boss and asked.
Yep.
Please, sir, I don't have...
We're going to lose our jobs if we don't do it.
Smith wanted police to let him go, but again, 11 active warrants.
My too late.
Okay, and you have 20 current suspensions and just as many warrants, all right? I understand it's only for traffic. I get that. It's rough. But unfortunately, that's just how it works out.
Do you have a valid license?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's not suspended or denied or anything like that?
I got to be honest with you. I have a suspended license because I'm in a court situation down in Detroit. And
Why is your license suspended?
I was in a traffic accident a year ago, last August 28th, and I'm in a court proceeding on a situation in an accident. Somebody rear-ended me on my trailer, but nobody knows that until we have a trial.
And the vehicle's registered to you and insured by you, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, hang tight. I'll be with you in a few minutes, okay?
Thank you.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
Is there anybody that can come get your vehicle for you?
Nobody up here.
Because here's the problem. I can't let you drive from here. You don't have a license. Technically, I probably should be taking you to jail because you're on a suspended license.
Yes.
My other question is what we're going to do about the dog.
Can I go back to my condo and just
How?
sit?
How would you get from here to there? No. It's not going to happen. You can't drive from here. So it's either somebody's coming to get you and come to get your vehicle, or you're coming with me to jail. So I would make some phone calls and see what you can come up with. Okay, I'll give you about 5 minutes here, okay? What did you find out?
The lady that's supposed to do a drip all day long is trying to do it for Friday, and she's an hour away, so I have to sit somewhere for you, whatever you want me to do.
Okay, well, I just ran your record. You actually have a prior suspended, so you are coming with me.
Oh, okay.
We just need to find...
Come on, I know you want out.
Abide by the law, which means you would have to park your car until you're able to pay off all of your tickets or your driver's responsibility fee, get your license unsuspended, which could probably take months to years, versus break the law and survive. Now, for anyone that says no one should break the law, for anyone that is adamant about not breaking the law, or people being irresponsible because they have to drive with a suspended driver's license, to me, I feel as though, and I'm adamant about this when I say this, and I stand 10 toes down on what I'm about to say. I feel like they are part of the problem. Reason why I say that is because people have to do what they have to do, and I'm not I'm not saying that you have to break the law. You have to do what you have to do, but you got to take care of your responsibilities. But at some point, if you have mouths to feed, if you can't miss work because you got to get paid, because you got to take care of your responsibilities or your living arrangements, maybe you have relatives that are sick and they need to attend doctor's appointments. Again, abide by the law or break the law to survive. How do you answer that?
It was pretty hard on my family driving because I had to drive. I had 4 children on my own, 1 was sick, and I had my 2 younger brothers. And so we were already coping with the loss of my mother. My brothers had lost their mother, my children had lost their grandmother, and I had lost my mother. So at that time, I was taking care of 6 children. 1 of them was a cancer survivor, still going back and forth for treatment, and I had to drive my car. I have a choice.
You know, at some point it really, it got to the point where it was nothing for me to do. And when it reached that point, I think it was when my car finally got repoed. And at that point, I was out of options. I was holding it down to the best of my ability before, when I was driving with a suspended license, getting to and fro, going to work. But I was getting ready to enter the phase where I really had to depend on people. And I was vulnerable, and I began to feel like I was in a mental prison. I was in a trap.